Hi, this is Sarah Stone, back to tell you a little bit more about the optimistic quadriplegic and how he became a quadriplegic. After getting out of surgery, we were able to see Keith for 10 minutes every hour on the hour and only 2 people at a time. I made sure that the nurses on the floor knew that my sisters were also nurses, so that if they felt they needed to talk in some medical terminology when talking about Keith, that it was fine if they went ahead and did that in front of my sisters, and then my sisters could kind of explain to me what they were talking about. This kind of put everyone a little bit more at ease, because Keith was in such a delicate state that they really wanted to just focus on Keith and what was best for Keith, and understood that my sisters and I wanted that, what's best for Keith as well. So he got out of surgery. We talked to Dr. Colin. I believe it was about 12:30 it was 6:30 in the morning, because it was over a 6-hour surgery. And we had heard what Dr. Colin had thought, and that the surgery itself was a success, but just didn't really know what was going to happen with Keith. So he got to the ICU at Northern McLaren. I'm really not sure about what time. I want to say 8:30, 9 o'clock. And we were able to see him, again, like I said, 10 minutes on the hour every hour. And so we had to wait in the waiting room for a lot of the time. And again, it was very interesting to see how we were the only ones in the waiting room, and then there'd be some more families that came in, and they were going through tragedies just like we were. And so it kind of brought you together in a way that you didn't really want to be brought together, but everyone could kind of empathize with one another. When my sisters and I were in with Keith, they were great. They were the ones telling me that right away I needed to be stretching Keith's hands and his feet. Not that he could feel what was going on, but because we didn't want any part of his body to get in a position and then for his body to think it's supposed to stay in that position. We wanted to keep the flexibility and the limberness in his arms and legs. And so every time we went in there on the hour, one of us was taking over one side with his hands, somebody else was on the other side, and we were bending his hands, bending his fingers, putting them in a fist, stretching them out again, kind of going in again like this, stretching the hands out, and then did the same thing with his feet. When the nurses from the hospital came in, they were very happy to see that we were doing that. We were also moving Keith every couple hours. We would take the pillow out of one side and put it under his other hip. We didn't want him to get any bed sores or anything like that. That is something we've continued on through today. We are always making sure that he doesn't get bed sores by keeping one hip up and the lack of pressure being on there. So we were stretching him. We were talking to him, even though he wasn't alert. My sisters made it very clear to me that he can hear and he knows what's going on, and he just needed to really keep hearing that we loved him. We knew he was going to be able to do this. We knew that it was a long road, but he was going to be able to do this. I would tell him who had stopped by to see us and different things that people had been doing. So, for example, one of my former teachers that I had was at a conference for teachers, and she drove 2 hours over to Petoskey to give me the key to her house that she has in Petoskey, her summer house, so that we didn't have to stay in hotels. She made it available to my entire family, which my nephews and their wives and my sisters and their husbands, I mean, there were quite a few of us, and Vicki Weiss was absolutely wonderful. She gave me the hug that I needed. She met with my future daughter-in-law, Allison, to go over to get the key, to show her where the house was, what we would need, what was provided for us, and was just wonderful. We also had some friends, again, some of my former employees, like Patty Dearlove and her husband Al, were actually on a tour. I believe they were testing out different kind of beers or things like that. So they weren't too far away, and they brought me a huge basket of just snacks, because you forget to eat, and if anyone's like me, when you're stressed you don't eat. There were snacks and there were crossword puzzles, and it was in a really nice basket and all sorts of stuff that we were able to share with other people that were in the waiting room. and just people you wouldn't expect to hear from. For example, a librarian in the district I was a principal in from another school that I knew, but not that well. She lives in the area during the summer, and she brought me a book and said, I believe it's called Jesus Calling, and she said it really helped her through some dark times, and it actually had her name on it, and her mom had given her this book to read. And so it just gave you some uplifting quotes and things to think about. And it was just so special that she took the time to come over. My good friend Lisa Larson and just lots of people came up and saw us, even though it was a 2-hour drive, and offered all sorts of support for us. I mean, when Keith got in this accident on a Sunday, we were going to be moving 2 days later. So, I mean, we were still in the uproar of, are we moving? Where are we going to go? Trying to move out of apartment into a condo. It was just a very chaotic time. And so to have all these people for me to lean on, those that I knew I could count on and those that I didn't know, but I count on a lot, they just made a big difference in my life and in Keith's life. I read my nephew set up a caring bridge, which I know Keith's going to talk to you more about. But there were all sorts of people commenting on there, and I would read Keith those comments, and they were just wonderful to hear. I remember when Keith woke up or started to come out of relying fully on the vent, it was a little bit more alert. I know he just wanted to communicate so badly with us, and with the tube in being on the ventilator, he had tears coming down his eyes, and I know he was just wanting to say he was sorry that things ended up this way, and he, even though he knows he couldn't have done anything different, he just really, this was a lot more than either one of us ever thought it would be when we're heading into our retirement days. I know Keith's going to talk to you more about the alphabet game, and I know he did in the very beginning, because once the vent came out, he looked at me and he said, "You really suck at the alphabet game."
Yeah, I told him everything I know about the alphabet game, so you can tell your side if you want. Defend yourself.
Thanks. My sister Carmela had talked to me about how to go through the alphabet, and when Keith would blink, we'd know that's the letter of the word that he wanted to spell. And, I should have known better. I was a kindergarten teacher for a long time, but I was also very, very uptight and very anxious. So I would ask him things really, really fast. Like I would go, is it A through G? Is it H, I, J, K? Is it who, what, where, when, why? And the first thing he had were tears coming down his eyes, and he was like, "I'm so sorry," is what he spelled out. But after that, it was like, oh my goodness, slow down. And sometimes I'd get the look from him, and every wife knows the look. It's the idiot look. It's the, I can't believe you just said that look. Well, I got that quite a few times, and then my sister would tap my hand, and she'd go, "Now let's try again." And my sister would do it much slower than I, and Keith would be in such relief. So I know for a couple reasons he was very happy to get the tube out and be able to breathe on his own, and one being that he wouldn't have to rely on me getting his messages by doing the alphabet game. I just wanted to touch back on the people that came and saw us and sent us prayers and positive thoughts. It was amazing how many people helped us and were there for us. Everyone in the Grand Blanc Community Schools were there for us. They talked about it on the opening day of that year of 2015. The superintendent and the deputy superintendent were fabulous. My staff, parents, and students were fabulous. And the people that we met at Northern McLaren, and when Keith eventually went to marry Freebed, just touched our lives in so many ways. And there's people I'm sure we don't even know that have been praying for Keith and have been lifting us up and have been listening to our stories such as this on YouTube, that we just want everyone to know what a difference they've made in our lives from the very beginning and continue on now. We are always looking at this from a positive point of view, but we're able to do that because of the support and the love and the cooperation we get from everyone else.
Did you want to talk at all about when my parents first came up there?
When I had talked to Keith's parents, they decided they were going to drive up from Florida. they got there. I mean, they drove pretty fast, and they only slept a few hours in the hotel. So when they got up there, I had taken a picture of Keith on the ventilator, which is the one that's on the front page of his YouTube. And I did that so that my in-laws would be able to see what Keith looked like, so it wasn't such a surprise for them. Keith is an only child, and I can't imagine what it would be like for a parent to see their only child laying in a hospital bed on a ventilator. But my father-in-law was very honest and said he didn't need to see the picture, that he was going to go in there, and he'd seen people on a ventilator before, and they've got some friends that had passed away, so he knew what to expect. We got inside that room, and within like 2 seconds, my father-in-law was almost on the floor. They had to pull a chair in right away. He was white as could be. He just didn't expect to have that reaction when it was his son laying in the bed on the ventilator. My mother-in-law was taken aback quite a bit as well, but not to the extent of my father-in-law. And my father-in-law will tell you now, he should have looked at that picture, because at least he would have seen that would have been the first picture in his mind rather than seeing it in person. But again, in-laws are great. They're great help, and they are strong, strong supporters of the optimistic quadriplegic.